Hi everyone, my name is Sean and I'm a second year English and Media student. I'm a current intern for the Applied Linguistics department, and we no longer just have a blog now. We have a newly launched Instagram page and a YouTube channel where you can catch all our interviews. We still have our blog, so do check that out if you haven't. The links will be accessible below. Today I'm honored to be given the role of an interviewer to interview one of our PhD students. She's not a stranger to the blog, so she is our guest for today. So let us put our hands together to welcome Tesni Galvin.
Hi, thanks for having me today and speaking to me.
Oh, welcome, Tesni. I'm excited to hear from you. I've heard a lot of good things about you. So for the sake of some that have not met you, could I get you to introduce yourself and what you're doing, what you do?
Yeah, of course. So my name's Tesni Galvin. I'm coming to the end of my second year as a PhD student. I'll be starting my third year in a couple of weeks. But I'm also finishing a 3-month internship with the Welsh Government that I did as well as part of my PhD. I've actually been at Swansea University since 2014. I did my undergraduate degree in English language. I then did a master's by research in the department as well, and started my PhD following that. So I have until roughly sort of July next year to finish my PhD. And the working title of my project, sort of the focus of my project, is looking at grammatical gender in Welsh English bilingual adults.
Wow. So you've been doing this since 2014. That's a long time.
I've been here a while.
Yeah.
Cool. They can't get rid of me.
Yeah. Have you always wanted to do a PhD?
Well, I suppose the real answer is no. I didn't know. It wasn't something that I thought about when I was doing my undergraduate degree. But I suppose once I'd done my dissertation, my third year dissertation with Dr. Vivian Rogers, it sort of became apparent that I enjoyed research, and that's why I applied for my master's by research. And then following on from that, I suppose it was quite a natural progression to go into my PhD. And I suppose the most obvious progression from here might be a postdoc. So I suppose we'll have to see what happens in the next year or so.
Oh, wow. What inspired you to go for it? Was it, just the support, just how easy it was maybe, or, how smooth it was?
I actually had a really enjoyable time. I really enjoyed doing my degree. I really enjoyed doing psycholinguistics in my second year, which was with Vivian, and then that sort of led me on to do my dissertation with her in my third year. And we looked at aptitude and working memory, and I looked at bilingual speakers and predominantly Welsh English bilingual speakers. And as a Welsh bilingual myself, it sort of made sense. And then kind of sort of looking into the research, we kind of saw this, I suppose the easiest way to say it is this gap in the literature, that we're not really looked at grammatical gender in Welsh English bilinguals from the angle that we're going from, if that makes sense. So I suppose it kind of just happened, and it was a very smooth process. I've been very lucky in that sense that we were able to apply for the Masters by Research. I received the scholarship from the university as well, which was really, really good help. And now I'm funded by the ESRC for my PhD as well, which obviously is very, very good. And it's extremely supportive as well. And the support we get from the ESRC is great.
Yeah, sounds amazing. Now I understand why Alexia wants me to speak to you about this thing.
I've been here a while.
So what is it like? What's a typical day in the life of for a PhD student?
I suppose it's changed a little bit because of COVID. I've worked from home since March 2020. Before that, I may have done a day or two at home, but I predominantly would have gone into university. So I suppose for me, the way it would work, I'd wake up around sort of, 7:30, start work around 8:30, do work somewhere in between 4 and 6, but hopefully go to the gym in between. So I try and do sort of anywhere between sort of 7 and sort of 9 hours a day. Obviously productivity fluctuates. It's like that with any job, especially because COVID as well, it's tricky. And then I'll do the 5 days and then we can potentially pick up some stuff on the weekend as well, where it's just managing that. And sort of we've had some other commitments, other roles you have to sort of do alongside your PhD. We've had to do some teaching, we've got conferences, I've done this internship, I did some research assistant work for Nuria as well. So it's just it's a balancing act, I suppose.
That's a lot. You were giving me so many things. I didn't so many things, and wow. Okay, if it's okay for you to break it down a bit for me, like just to help me understand what is the difference between, let's say, a master's student, an undergraduate student, and a PhD student?
So because I did a master's by research, I suppose it's fairly similar in the sense that it's very much on your own, sort of, it's up to you how much work you do, and you have to be motivated all the time. So in your undergraduate degree, you get all of the materials online, which is great. Obviously you get assessments, so you have deadlines that are set. You have to submit your work by those deadlines, but it's not the same with PhD. I set myself deadlines and I do that along with my supervisor, but you have your start of your PhD and the final submission date. There are no official deadlines in between, so you have to come up with those yourself and work towards those. So if you're not motivated, or you're not sort of putting in the hours, then it can get very difficult. But I suppose I'm very, very fortunate. I'm able to work from home and I enjoy it. So yeah, I would say sort of work any time between sort of 8:30 and 6, depending on what's going on in the day. And often we have meetings and stuff like that as well. So
yeah. Wow, you have. I'm assuming that you have very good time management and just self-discipline to fit everything within those hours.
Yeah, I suppose the main thing that taught me my time management was doing my CELTA in my second year. So I actually did CELTA in my first semester of my second year. But the way that it was done when we did it, I suppose we were the guinea pigs at the time. It counted as a 20 credit module, but we had the extra sort of, I think it was 16 hours contact hours on top a week of our degree. So I had it as a module, 2 other 20 credit modules, a 10 credit module. So I ended up having it was near like 30 contact hours in the week, plus all the extra work. I'm not sure if you've done CELTA, but it requires a lot of time and effort.
Yeah, I did CELTA this year in my second semester, but I don't think it was as much as what you went through.
Yeah, so I can remember we had to go in for 2 days a week from sort of, I think it was 12 till 8 o'clock for 2 days. And obviously you'd have your modules around it as well. And I really enjoyed the process, but it was very difficult. We had to manage time, and I suppose from there it really has helped with managing different things alongside your studies, because in the world of academia you can't just do your academic studies, you need to do the other commitments as well, like potentially teaching or research assistant work or conferences and things like that take up time. So I'm not saying, by no means am I the best, but I'd like to think that I do a good job and I do enjoy it. So I guess I'm lucky in that sense.
I agree you do a good job.
Thanks.
Yeah. So it sounds quite flexible then, right? So it really depends on how fast you work, how what are your work hours, for this whole PhD thing. This is just a question that just popped in my mind. What happens if you don't manage to finish it within those 3 years?
Well, you do get a write-up year, which is your 4th year. But for those of us who are fortunate to be funded by bodies like the ESRC, we would no longer get funding after the 36 months. So if we wanted to take more time, then we would have to find a way to earn some money alongside it. But this is something that all of us PhD students have conversations about. Is obviously productivity sort of dropped because of COVID, but I think when you do your undergraduate degrees and sometimes your masters even, you kind of look at what you do each day, and did you hit each target each day? And I think a lot of us got to a point and said we can't do it per day, we have to do it across the week, because sometimes we may not have days where we could sort of produce 7 or 8 hours of really good work. We only may get to do sort of 3 or 4. So we have to look at it, did we achieve what we wanted to across the week rather than what we've achieved across the day? And I suppose that helps us manage, because lots of people, I like working all day, but lots of people like working really early in the morning or really late in the night. And I think if you look at your daily tasks and you say, well, actually I've not done it, then it can cause quite a lot of sort of stress and anxiety. So looking at across the week, I think can really help. And this is something we always talk about, is trying to manage it and feel satisfied with what we've achieved.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important.
Guessing there is a group of PhD students, but you all study different things? You all do research on different things?
So I think there are 14 of us in the department. Apologies if I'm wrong, but I think there are 14 of us who are doing PhDs. Some of us are full-time, some of us are part-time as well. So that would be spread across 6 years for some of them. And some of them are long distance as well, so they're not actually here in the UK. But there are a group of us who are here in Swansea and are doing PhDs full-time. There are 4 of us with the same supervisor, Dr. Vivian Rogers. And although we have sort of, I suppose, similar interests, the projects are very different from each other. But I think that's the beauty about it, because you can talk to someone about your PhD, they'll understand what you're talking about, but it doesn't mean it's their research area of interest, if that makes sense. Yeah, but there are others in the department as well, and we all have very interesting and unique PhDs, and I think that works really well.
Yeah, I keep saying PhD student, but I feel like it's not really like a course of study, but it feels like a work. It feels like a job kind of thing. Yeah,
I suppose we have to treat it like a job, especially those of us who are full-time. So I like to think if I can do my work between 9 and 5, it's as if I was in a normal job. But if I wanted to do it between 12 o'clock midday to 9 p.m. in the evening, that's also okay, because we have that flexibility. And I think that's why we look at it across the week rather than what did we achieve in the day by 6 p.m, for instance. And I think if you don't treat it like a job, it can get quite difficult. But especially for those of us who are fortunate enough to be funded by research councils like the ESRC, then we are sort of advised or in a terms of agreement to work 35 hours a week. So we have to make up those hours to really get the work done, I suppose. But I know a lot of us would work a lot more than that, which is okay, because we enjoy our work, doing our work, I suppose.
Yeah. So if we can talk a bit about what you're currently working on, and just more on the research project.
Yeah, of course. So I come into the end of my second year of my PhD. So my master's by research looked at specifically, it was very sort of niche, but we looked at the predictive processing of grammatical gender in Welsh English speakers. So essentially, can they use certain linguistic cues, such as we use numerals, because that's how we mark gender in Welsh. Is very different to other gendered languages. Based on the gendered cue, whether it was masculine or feminine, could they predict the upcoming noun? So that's what we did for my master's, which was really interesting. I absolutely loved the project. But for my PhD, because of COVID, we haven't actually been able to get into the linguistics lab on campus. We split it into 2 experiments. And the first experiment, we sort of went back to the groundwork, the basics, if that makes sense. So we've looked at how Welsh speakers produce and comprehend grammatical gender. So do they use gender in production, and can they comprehend it, and how is it represented? So we were able to create a battery of tasks that I created on Gorilla. I'm not sure if you've heard of it. It's an online software. Absolutely brilliant. We administered a battery of tasks to 40 Welsh English bilingual adults. I sat with them on Zoom between October and December. And the last 6 months, I've analysed the results, written my chapter, and we have some ideas for the discussion as well. But I've obviously done a 3-month internship as well with the government, where I've sort of taken a step back from my PhD work and focused on that as well. So now that we have the results and we have an idea of what Welsh speakers are doing and how they're using grammatical gender, the next step is a follow-up experiment, so the second experiment. And fingers crossed, we can get to the eye tracker on campus, where we can look at the predictive processing of gender. So very similar to my master's project, but what we know is how they use it in everyday speech. And then essentially we can see if they use it predictively. And we've got a couple of ideas of how we can do that and make it better than the last one. So when I finish my internship, I've got some annual leave, and then I'll come back, and I've got sort of 6 months to do this next experiment then.
Sounds like it sounds like there were a lot of transferable knowledge and skills from your masters.
Yeah.
Were there anything else that was new for you doing this research?
Yeah, I mean, I'd never used an eye tracker before. It was new to the university in our department. So Vivian and I had to learn how to use it, I suppose, together. And now we've done that, it will help with creating this experiment. I had to learn how to use Gorilla as well. There's a very user-friendly software, so that was great. I've also had to learn how to do statistics, I suppose that most of us have as well, and how to use the statistics software. So we use JASP, which we've used in our undergraduate degrees, but I've also dipped in and out of using R as well. So that's really interesting. But also just a number of different softwares. We use Pratt as well for any speech as well, Audacity, anything like that, that really helps. So in terms of skills, software skills, I've learned quite a lot from my master's into my PhD. Yeah. But I suppose the steepest learning curve is learning how to write and write concisely. Because when you do your work in your PhD, you don't get graded. I'm not going to submit a chapter next week and she'll go, oh, you'll get 70 for this. It doesn't work like that. And we get lots of comments to help us improve. But learning to write at length, concisely, is a skill in itself, I suppose.
Yeah. What are some of the linguistic skills that have been most important to you for this project?
So grammatical gender is, I suppose, my area of interest in terms of linguistic features, and this isn't really something we covered in our undergraduate degree. It's something very briefly I think we covered in maybe Cornelia's first year module, but it's not something that we sort of focused on because it's syntax and it's very niche, I suppose. So that was something that I had to learn fairly quickly at the start of my master's. I suppose grammatical gender in its essence is very simple to understand, but there's a lot more to it, and it's learning how to do your syntax trees and things like this, and talking about features and whether it's interpretable and uninterpretable, and writing that in a way that's understandable for everyone in your thesis, not just the specialists. Yeah. So I suppose in terms of linguistic skills, that was one. I've also, I write about the syntax of Welsh. So I'm a Welsh speaker. At first, a simultaneous bilingual Welsh speaker, I suppose, is what you would class me as. But I never learnt the sort of syntax of Welsh at any point. I never explicitly learnt the rules as a child. Yeah. So I had to go back and do that. I can speak Welsh, but it doesn't mean I know the syntax of it. So it was learning to do that as well, which was really important.
Yeah. Did that take a long time to?
I think it took me a long time to really understand it, not just sort of regurgitate the information that I've either found in articles or in books, and being able to answer questions based off of that. And I think there's always more to learn because it's very, very specific, because Welsh also has a mutation system, which is a set of alternations to the initial consonants of some words and letters. So it's not just gender, it's the mutations as well, and understanding the two systems in conjunction of one another. And yeah, I would say it was quite difficult because it's something I had to learn from scratch, but that's okay. I suppose that's why you do a PhD and a master's by research, is to learn, isn't it? Yeah. But in terms of the linguistic skills, I suppose those are the most important ones that I've had to learn. But obviously, lots of other stuff has come along with it as well.
Yeah. What do you hope to do after this? After all this, yeah.
I would really like to do a postdoc. It obviously depends how my last year goes and when I end up finishing my PhD and what's available and things like that. But I would really quite like to do maybe another sort of year or two looking into a slightly different angle of grammatical gender. I like to continue my work, but it has to obviously be slightly different. So that's something I think I'd like to do. Whether it's something I'd be able to do, I don't know. There are some postdocs, but they are far and few between. So fingers crossed that will be it. But I know hopefully I'll also be in a position that if I if I'm not able to get a postdoc, then maybe I could do some research assistant work or do some research work for the government as well, as I'm just coming to the end of my internship with them now.
Yeah. What has been one thing that, okay, maybe a few, but what has been the few rewarding things about doing a PhD, or maybe about what you study? Yeah,
I think in essence it's how much I've learned and how much knowledge I've gained, and it's something that you will never, you cannot take advantage of it. If I think about how much I understood 3 years ago compared to now, it's not even comparable. And I love the fact that we keep learning. Each day I might come across a new paper or a new article or a new blog, and I think, well, actually I didn't know that. That's great, I can now use that. It doesn't have to be used in my PhD, but I think a lot of background knowledge is really useful as well. So I think that's probably my favorite thing. I do also love the fact that I'm able to use all these different softwares as well. That's a very nice thing to do, and those transferable skills. It means I can sort of apply myself to learn a new one if I want to. And I think that helps. So I think the two of those combined. But I suppose as well, as a Welsh speaker, I love knowing that I'm contributing to the work on the Welsh language, and I think that's the most, I suppose that has to be the most important thing, doesn't it?
Yeah. Wow, that's a lot. Yeah. Well, now I feel like I want to do a PhD as well. I'm convinced. But wow, that's amazing. Yeah, I realized that, because I'm actually from Malaysia.
Okay.
So I'm currently in Malaysia right now, and in my past 2 years, I always see Welsh words, but I don't see a lot of Welsh speakers. I don't hear a lot of Welsh speakers, but I do see that the university tries to prioritize it, promotes it. But I have never heard someone as passionate about the Welsh language. So this is wonderful. Learning about, just the people there and the culture there as well. Yeah, I think that's all the questions I have for you today. Is there anything else that you'd like to add on? Any advice maybe for anyone who wants to go into this pathway?
The one thing I would say, and this is advice that I've been given by a number of members of staff in the department, is just take on every opportunity that you can, that you're able to manage. It's not saying no because you don't want to do the extra work or you think it would be too difficult. Just give it a go. And I think that's what I've been able to do over my sort of 7 years I've been here. And I suppose it's where it's gotten me today, by saying yes to do these extra things. And it's okay, it doesn't matter that it's unpaid, it's experience, and that's what's really, really important. But I think it's the more you do, the more you can enjoy the process as well. And I think that's what I would say is just give it a go. And if you enjoy it, then that's the best thing about it, and you get to learn as well. So and I would say good luck to anyone who wants to do a PhD.
Wonderful. All right. Thank you so much for your time. I will end it here by saying thank you to the listeners for listening and just tuning in. We've had a wonderful conversation, and I've learned a lot about PhD. I've learned a lot about the Welsh language as well. If you find this useful, if you find this interesting, feel free to share it out to your friends. There will be links below if you need it, and we'll see you the next time. Bye.
Bye.